Okay, so what we have here with certain fallen angels is that they have the ability to transform, and a lot of that was exploited in the Transformer series movies and in the Transformer cartoons. And so what they did was they based that off of something that was real. And so what we have with fallen angels is not what people think. It's not the touched by an angel version with these guys. These beings are spiritual beings with incredible powers, and one of those powers entails that as we would create objects and as we would form these objects through resources and through the materials and the powers that we have, their powers is that they can transform themselves into objects. And so we're talking objects that look like space-age vehicles and planes. We're talking about objects that basically look like other entities. They can transform into a creature. They could transform into a ship. They can transform to even look like the implements that we have. They can literally transform themselves to disguise themselves as a car, as a plane, and as a lot of different type of objects. There's really nothing they can really do in terms of transforming. We do know that when it comes to the fallen angels, they don't have as much power as they normally would in terms of their transforming abilities, but they do have them at a very good length. So they're not totally depowered. And so a lot of them like to transform into ships. A lot of them like to transform into certain objects. A lot of them like to transform into basically UFOs, basically planes, basically other looking creatures. And sometimes it gets sporadic. You know, sometimes they kind of, you know, from a lot of the transforming and using the powers that they use in our dimension, and it kind of weighs heavy on them. You know, they can't always maintain it. They can't always maintain the form or the shapes that they take, and sometimes they go a little crazy in the atmosphere. And then sometimes that's caught on camera, where they're just like morphing into like a UFO and then a dragon and then other types of forms of spiritual reptilian-looking you know, helixes, if you will, you know, combinations of different forms. For instance, you'll see some transforming from a UFO into a dragon-looking creature and then back again, and then it disappears and then comes back again. And when it's doing that, what's happening at that moment is that it's freaking out because it can't maintain its form in our dimension, and they don't want to go back to the other dimension they just came from. So they try to struggle with it. And sometimes when they come into our dimension, they're pretty set in their form or their shape, and they're able to maintain it for probably long periods of time before they end up dissipating, and then another group comes in. And so there is a weakness to them, but we don't have the weapons to really combat them, to tell you the truth. I mean, fighting them is like throwing sticks at them. It's not going to work. You know, you can throw a nuclear warhead at them, and that's not going to work. You can shoot bullets at them, and that's not going to work. When it comes to the full spiritual beings, the full fallen spiritual beings, I'm not talking about their Nephilim children, who are another story, because they can morph too, but not as well as the fallen angels. The fallen angels, to understand them, they're usually balls of light, and then they have demons that can also appear that way. So it's tricky identifying them, but one thing that you can do is when you pay enough attention to them, or if you spent enough time observing them, you start to notice how the demon lights are not as transformable as the fallen angels. Fallen angels are, you know, they can basically transform within seconds and disappear within seconds, and the demons, or the spiritual demons, they seem to maintain a certain form, and then they're known to just basically dissipate a lot quicker. And so that's probably the only way you can tell on that end, you know, when it comes to these beings.